So real quick, I'll keep it easy and light. My name's Joe. Joe Rixon, Assistant Athletic Director for Ticket Operations at Seton University. Before that, I was at Liberty University for 7 years as Assistant Director of Ticket Operations. And so why Troy asked me to sort of lead this session was because at Liberty, when I first got there, we weren't a very big ticket office. It was 2 people. It was me and my boss, and we were responsible for managing tickets for, what was a 9,000 seat football stadium to a 12,000 seat football stadium to a 19,000 seat football stadium. The last part of that added 20 suites, 4 club areas, and we were expected just to make it work. So the first part of the handout I gave out touches on some of the problems that we encountered. The first issue that we encountered was, and if you have questions, feel free to jump in. The first problem we encountered was we assumed that there would be voices in the room to speak for us. Our office was on the other end of campus. We were not located within the athletic department building. We were all the way in our basketball arena, so we would ask for things in meetings, and those meetings would turn into different meetings with university personnel, and what we considered to be a priority was not necessarily what others in the department decided to be a priority. So we knew that we did that final expansion with all the club levels and additional seats. We knew we would need a couple of different things. We knew we would need, there's a handout in the back, do you want to grab it? Sure. We knew we would need a couple different things. The first was new technology. We had to start investing in technology, and we had to figure out how we were going to monitor the usage of 19,000 tickets out. And so we asked for $2,000, $1,300 scanners, and we needed new Wi-Fi access points, and all those things wound up costing a lot of money. But the thing we needed most was people. We needed people to be able to work the gates, handle access to our suites and our club areas. That was our priority. Somehow within the discussion, that got lost and the priority became all the technology. So we met with my athletic director when they announced they were doing the renovation, and he told us, we're getting all this new technology, we're going to build out the Wi-Fi, we're going to build out your scanners, we're going to do everything good. And we're like, all right, well, who's going to work it? Silence, nothing. So at that point we were told there wasn't going to be any money that year for people. So we actually had to go out and find volunteers to handle a 19,000 seat football stadium. So what it taught us was we had to find a way to force ourselves into the room. Like, we couldn't rely on our marketing director or our senior associate for external to fight for us. One, because he honestly didn't know what we were doing or ultimately what our priorities were. He thought that scanners were cool and they looked really cool and our fans would like them. So it taught us we had to find a way to force ourselves into those rooms. And it got to the point where there were times we were like, look, when those meetings happening, we're going to be in this meeting. And so you can't rely on other people in the organization advocating for your resources, because to be honest with you, they don't know what you need. They don't understand what assets you rely on. And at the end of the day, they're not going to have any idea what you're doing on a daily basis, because they're not around you on a daily basis, especially if you're like a lot of ticket offices. You are in a different department on campus on another end. So ultimately, we had to figure out how we were going to staff up. We knew we needed people, obviously. We couldn't just sit around all day and say, well, we're not going to have any paid people. We're just going to figure out how to make it work. And so ultimately, we decided we're going to have to do it with volunteers, which obviously is not ideal, especially when you're doing a new facility and you're relying on people that have to understand and remember vast amounts of information about your facility, especially a new facility they've never been to and they know nothing about it. So the first thing we did is we figured out what we needed, right? So we blew up sort of a Google image of our facility. We put it on, they went to Kinko's, put it on a big board. We went through every single possible spot in our stadium that we would need somebody working. We drew circles, and it went from 10 to 20 to 30 to ultimately wound up being about 50 people that we needed working in different areas of our facility. And that was important because it gave us an idea of what we were going to have to look for anyway. We couldn't just wing it. We had to have an idea before we actually went out and started working to find volunteers to work our events, what we were going to need. So that was the first thing we did. The other thing we did was we took an inventory of all of those positions that we needed, and we listed the qualities that we needed out of each of those people. If we needed somebody to be an usher, for example, right? We needed them to be pleasant, right? But we also needed somebody who was going to kick somebody out of their seats if they weren't behaving, who was going to be able to alert security or kick somebody out who wasn't in the seat they were assigned to, right? So then we needed, certain positions had to have backbone. It's a volunteer, it's an unpaid position, but we needed people who were going to have look up. So, and then for our suites, we needed somebody who's going to be more customer service friendly, understanding that these were premium clients we had to take care of, and same with our elevator attendants. Premium clients, they need to get used to the same people every week, and so each position needs something different. Our on-field security, once again, we're relying on volunteers to do on-field security. Same thing, we needed people who were going to have a little bit of backbone, who were going to be able to handle it. Like I said, it's a volunteer position, but the expectations for my bosses were the same. Someone got through that shouldn't have gotten through, at the end of the day it was us. Didn't matter whether it was a volunteer, 70-year-old man from a retirement home, it didn't matter. At the end of the day, it had to be somebody that we could rely on. So after that, we started trying to figure out where we could find people. The first place we went was actually retirement homes and assisted living communities. Thankfully, the Liberty University was affiliated with a large, it's Baptist affiliated, they were affiliated with a large Baptist church. So they gave us a couple of resources there in regards to local retirement communities they worked with. And what we found was a couple of different things. You know, the people who were in those homes were always looking for something to do and a way to contribute. They wanted to get out, they wanted to have fun. And while me and you might not consider scanning tickets to the gate to be a fun Saturday activity, for a lot of people, it's an opportunity to get out and meet people. And so we discovered that while things we might not have thought were fun, or things that we wanted to do on our free weekends, we found those people wanted to do those things. It also gave an opportunity to feel valued. You know, when you're in a retirement home or an assisted living center, you don't always have the opportunity to feel valued. And so anytime you could bring somebody in, make them feel special, give them some swag, remind them that they have a role to contribute, that was really important to them as well. And people understand good customer service. They're old-fashioned, right? They just understand what it's going to take to, you know, one of my best volunteers owned his own hardware store for 40 years, right? He understood customer service. You don't make it in a business like that or owning a business for 40 years unless you understand what customers are looking for. He wound up being one of the best security guys we ever sort of had, because he knew how to push people off, but in a way that was polite, and people are less likely to give an old man some problems. So that was the first thing. The second thing we did was we went to local business groups. So local chambers, Kiwanis, Rotary, and we portrayed it as a marketing opportunity for them and a networking opportunity. And so we got probably about 15, 20 people just through networking at those events. We already had a presence at Kiwanis, we already had a presence at our local chamber. If you are in any sort of external position and you are not involved in the chamber or Kiwanis or Rotary, you should really get into, because you're going to be able to find assets through those people. Maybe not in a setting like this, but you'll be able to find assets for other aspects of your business. And last but not least, same thing. Looking for opportunities to get involved and their customer service oriented, right? Most of these people own their own business or they're involved in a company that handles customer service, and so that's something to keep in mind as well. They already understand the business mindset. The other thing we do is we just look for students in our university and kids who are looking for internship opportunities. We found out that our sport management program required kids to, at least once during their tenure as sport management majors, complete 70 hours of sport-specific community service. Didn't matter what it was. It could be volunteering in a golf course or standing to our games. Didn't matter. As long as it got 70 hours. So we relied very heavily on those people, and that resulted in another 30% of our volunteer base. Internships were big as well. We had a lot of kids who just wanted internship opportunities for credits through the university, and that was another big help for us. The other thing we discovered was that we had a lot of federal work study positions on our campus that were not necessarily being used. And what's great about that is it doesn't cost your university anything. So also check with, if you're on a campus setting, I don't know if anybody here is involved in a campus setting, but for us, federal work study positions wound up being very helpful for us. And they're helpful in our career role at Seton Hall. Almost all my student workers are federal work study. So that's something else to keep in mind. And like I said, your schools that use them, they lose them. And so it's important if they do have opportunities available, you can find a way to help with that. And the last part is you have to check with your legal department. Make sure that you have proper liability insurance with the volunteers. We found out that we did under our current university policy, but it took a lot of digging through the legal department to make sure that we had the proper insurance. And if you're a private entity, it's obviously that much more important to have those assets. Any questions so far?
What are your guys'? We're in Washington, and it's a little more difficult with internships, and the laws are set up to where if you can pay somebody to do that job, you can't have an intern do that job. Is that the same with you guys? Or?
So in Virginia and New Jersey, that's not necessarily the case. I know there's some rumors down the road. New Jersey's probably going to move more towards that model. For us, though, the positions we put them in were being worked by volunteers. That was sort of our, at the end of the day in Virginia, they talked about that for a while too. That was sort of our workaround, was volunteers were working those same positions. We weren't paying those other people, so therefore, once we started paying those positions, it became a little bit more of a
and you couldn't replace
legal financial. Yeah, we couldn't necessarily do it that way, just in anticipation of the law possibly changing. We didn't want to have to do that in a year. But yeah, once we started paying those positions, we ultimately decided to remove internships from doing those. Only because, like I said, we were afraid after the season, the state of Virginia, the state of New Jersey would pass a law saying, look, you can't do that anymore.
Where did you move the interns at that point, or did you just?
We hadn't gotten to that point in the season yet.
Okay.
Yeah, we had hired security staff in between the seasons, so we didn't have to run into that issue, thankfully. So the third step for us was training them, and the thing we had to remember that was that our fans didn't care, and it doesn't matter, they don't know if that person's a volunteer. They don't care if that person's a volunteer. At the end of the day, if their tickets aren't working, somebody's got to fix it, right? So the next step was empowering your volunteers to know what they were doing. Like I said, your customer doesn't care. I could never walk up to a customer who had a problem with their ticket or had a problem finding the gate they wanted to, or will call and say, oh, I'm sorry, the person that helped you out was a volunteer. You know, the expectation's not there. It's not going to work. So we trained the heck out of the volunteer group that we had. The first thing we did was we took them on a tour of the facility. We showed them every potential area they may or may not be working. We fed them. We had like a little group event. Like I said, we gave them sweat. And so they were able to see which areas, and so when they did fill out ultimately the application, we made them fill out an application just like any other job application. They were able to fill in some areas they sort of thought they wanted to work in. And what's nice about that too is it gave us an opportunity to learn about those people. We were able to find out what their background was. Were they in sales? Were they in marketing? You know, were they in organized labor? And it allowed us to see sort of what their skill set was. So even if they thought they wanted to work in a certain area, we knew that wasn't going to be a fit for them. We could put them in an area that we thought ultimately was going to work best for them. Like I said, we made sure everybody understood their potential job. We went through, look, this is the responsibility of this job. Yeah, it sounds cool to be a suite attendant, but you're also dealing with some of our highest paying customers who have certain expectations about the value that they're getting. And so a lot of times, once people understood that, they're like, I don't really want to do that. I sort of want a job that has a little less responsibility and let me scan tickets. But we showed them what the customer sees. We made sure that they were trained to handle any particular problem. So if you were a gate attendant, you were scanning tickets, what to do if your scanner broke? Who was the person you had to go to at the gate? Who was your immediate supervisor within that area? We taught you how to look at the receipt, customer receipt. Somebody comes up and says, I don't know where to pick up my tickets, how to look at the receipt, analyze the information, and ultimately send them to the right place. Give a map of the facility. Every volunteer had a map of the facility in their back pocket. They would pull it out. It was labeled for who would, you know, if you needed this, you went here. So we made sure that every moment to them was a teachable moment, and that no matter what the customer came up with, they'd either direct to somebody who could take care of them or ultimately take care of it themselves. The other thing is, if you haven't trained an 88-year-old man to use a ticket scanner, it is one of the funniest and most rewarding things you'll ever do. For the first half hour, he started using it like it was a Star Trek thing, like you move it up and down. We eventually told him to hold it here and scan it. Eventually figured it out, he wound up being one of our best ticket scanners. But that first half hour was a pretty big struggle. Just remember that when you're dealing with volunteers, that while the expectations for the customer might be as high, it's going to take you a little longer to train than somebody who's technically paid to do that position. Yes?
So talking about volunteers, how do you kind of make sure, I mean, you were saying that they fill out a job application and everything, but how do you really make sure that they're like coming there on time, they're not showing up like 15 minutes late, they're not wearing like the wrong like uniform or something like that? No,
well, we gave them pretty right off the bat, we told them there was expectations for them, that they were important and that their job was important. And even though it was a volunteer opportunity, we did rely on them. And what was nice was most of them had some sort of affiliation with the university, either as an alumnus or as a member of the church next door. So there was already this sort of intrinsic connection. They knew it was important. They didn't want to let anybody down. So we just were clear right off the bat. While they were volunteers, we sort of had to treat them with kid gloves, so to speak. We ultimately fired some people. We did not hesitate to tell somebody, we just don't think it's a good fit for you. Maybe there's a new opportunity we can find if we can, maybe your best bet is to not come back. So we did have to have some of those tough conversations. We didn't have to have that many of them, because it's going to be a lot of work on the front end to have to avoid that. But we did have to deal with that. Any questions? Anita, is that good? Awesome. So when you're a small organization, I think all the time, the best thing you can do is to be organized and proactive. For us, the worst thing we could deal with on a game day was a miscommunication issue, either a marketing email that went out or blast that miscommunicated where to pick up your tickets, or an email that we sent out that wasn't clear on how to pick up your tickets or how parking worked. And so for us, we had to examine almost every step of the customer process and over-communicate every single element of that process. So we thought about our whole game day scenario. What is a customer looking for on their way in? Do they need parking information? Are they picking up their tickets at will call? What will call window are they going to? How are they getting that information? So we went through how we could sort of overly communicate that message. Was it an email? Was it a phone call the night before from a sales rep that had personally sold them those tickets? And it was a little bit of everything. we took a look at every single step. And what we found was if we were prepared for potential problems, it made it a little easier. So for example, if we knew that homecoming, they're going to be shutting down, the main road through campus 2 hours before game time, which also tends to be our most popular time for people to park and want to enter the stadium. We had to be ready for that. We had to make sure we overly communicate that message. So one year we did a phone blast. We called everybody, with a recorded message from our football coach saying, hey, just a reminder, you're not going to be able to park here between the hours of this and this. We did an email blast. So like, hey, just a reminder that you're not going to be able to do this. And this was in addition to the other things we did. Like we overly communicated key things. The other thing we did was, for example, there were 2 places you could pick up tickets at will call. Or you could leave tickets at. We discovered after the first game that, how do they know which will call window they went to? The customer doesn't know that there's 2 different will call windows. And so we actually started giving customers slips that said you handed your tickets off at, at West Side will call. And that way when they called their friend up, they could say, hey, look, you're at West Side will call. So we thought through every step of the customer process to try to avoid problems. Because if we were fixing little fires on game day, there were other balls we were dropping. If we could focus on the things we could control early, then ultimately it led to a lot less issues at the end of the day. Like I said, we were proactive, eliminating questions and customer service issues. How can you use a game day email? So the example I provided below, I didn't make this up. A buddy of mine works at a small Division I FCS football institution, and that email on the right is what they email on the left is what they sent out one time before one of their biggest games. They consider that to be proactive. 80% of people who got the email opened it. Was that a surprise? There's nothing about it that screams, open me, here's some important information. But I have your Jet season tickets. I get the email on the right. I click on it almost every time. At Seton Hall, we do an email like that as well. The average click-through rate on that is 5 times higher than what a general text email would be. We do about 60% of our fans open that pre-game email. And all it does is say what time parking opens, what time ticket office opens, what time gates open, who's singing our national anthem, which you don't think would be important, but it is to a lot of people. People want to know random stuff like that. And if we're doing any special events, so last year we focused on, we honored the 25th anniversary of probably the best team Seton Hall ever had, the 92-93 team that got sort of knocked out in the first round and upset. But our fans latched on that team. They love that team. It was one of PJ Carlizmo's last great teams at Seton Hall. So we branded every email with that. We reminded them, hey, look, you're going to want to be at this game. This isn't just any other game. And it's not that hard to do. You can go through a company like Fiverr and find a freelance guy who can design you an email like this, who can make it look sharp, or you can go on MailChimp. That's where we do most of our stuff. And just, you wouldn't realize how much just that initial step alone of making your email just more attractive to read and open can prevent a lot of the issues that you're having. We also figured our phone messages game by game. You couldn't get a hold of anybody on the phone on a game day just because we were only 2 people and we were managing that office. So we made sure the phone message answered every potential question you may have. Where do I park? What time the gates open? What's the weather going to be like? Are there any major events going on? And people, pardon my French, complained about the bitch all the time about that phone message and how long it was. But very rarely did anybody leave a message because they do that whole thing. And on average, they would have 2 messages in there. And usually that person was just impatient and didn't want to listen to the whole message. But usually their question was answered on that message. It took a lot of work. We probably took about 4 or 5 times to record the message because we wanted it to sound good. But we found that ultimately prevented a lot of our problems. If we're getting 250 phone calls in a game day, when 2 people leave that phone message with an initial question, I think you did a pretty good job. And last but not least, like I said, ticket receipts. Ticket receipt should spell out everything. Obviously, printed home is important, but you wouldn't be the kind of people we actually had to reiterate an email, this is your ticket. We actually had to start putting on the printed home ticket, this is your ticket. People walk into the will call windows saying, I don't know what to do with this. They're saying, on 15 minutes. Now that's your ticket. Use that. You did a printed home ticket, that's yours. You couldn't assume the customer is going to know those things, especially if it's someone who has never been to our game before, has never. We're in Central Virginia. We don't have a ton of big facilities around us that use incredible technology. So a lot of our fans had no idea what a mobile or printed home ticket was. We had to use that opportunity to educate them. So we actually had to put on the ticket, this is your ticket. If you want to leave a ticket, we had a big map on there that explained to you where everything was, where the gate was, what the best gate for your ticket was to go to, where the best place to park was. And we found that, once again, once we started spelling all that stuff out in the email and overly communicating that message, we had a lot less problems on the game day just from a little fire standpoint. And like I said, is it attractive? Is somebody going to read that? No. They're more likely going to read the thing that looks more attractive and is more exciting to open. And from a fan standpoint, you feel a lot better if you get a fancy email like that. You get a wedding invitation on photocopy paper. It's not going to look very nice. If you get one that's fancy, you're going to feel a lot better about the event you're going to. And so, like I said, we were a small ticket office, but you couldn't act that way. It didn't matter to the fan. The fan could have, like I said, could care less than people we had working. They expected a certain thing and we had to deliver. And so like I said, the biggest thing you can take away from this is if you're in a small ticket office and you don't have a lot of personnel, is just to try to be overly prepared for every potential problem that pops up. We spend a lot of time, we spend a lot of late nights in the office just thinking through, all right, what if this goes wrong? What do we do? What if that goes wrong? There's only two of us. So hopefully one of us is going to have to make a decision, a split-second decision. And the other big thing is if you are in tickets, is to advocate for yourself. Don't count on somebody else doing it for you, because they're not going to know what you want, and a lot of times their priorities don't mesh up with what your priorities are. And so it's really important to find a way to almost force yourself into the conversation about fan experience, because a lot of times your boss isn't going to get it, nobody else is going to get it. You're the one that's dealing with the front lines of the customers. You're the, I always say, my athletic director says all the time, Pat Lyons always says that, in the college space, that athletics is the front porch of the university, right? Well, ticket office is the steps. Like usually we're the first person they're coming in contact with. So whether or not you're using volunteers, you have a small office, because it doesn't matter. So you have to find ways to be prepared for any potential problems that pop up. And like I said, even with a small office, I thought many times we created a pretty world-class experience for people through our ticket design and through our volunteer training. Any questions, ideas?
Just in terms of who your volunteer position.
Yeah.
So you kind of have the ushers, the will call, scanning. Did you have any paid employees in the actual ticket box?
We did. So most of the people who sold tickets and handled will call were either paid employees or student workers. Our volunteers mainly handled any of the data, like the walk-up ticket scanning. Anything that had to do with the actual stadium itself was basically a volunteer position.
And the actual security as well? On top
So we didn't initially. The only security we had at each gate was our university police department. And then eventually got to a full security situation. I think the university just realized, and this might be something your organization deals with too, just from a liability standpoint, it may be more expensive, but in the short term, in the long term, it might save you more money because usually outside security firm has their own insurance, they have their own liability issues. If something goes wrong, they're handling it. So in the short term, it may cost you a little more money, but in the long term, I think it's overall better because one, somebody's there to hold them accountable, they're getting paid, so there's probably additional pride in that position. But on top of that, from a liability standpoint, it's really important that like I said, as much liability as you can get off your hands, especially if you're a small organization with, with insurance liability issues, I think that's big. Anybody else? Any issues on? Like I said, the other things you and I said is make sure you get in the room, you talk about things. That includes stadium construction as well. So when we built our new baseball stadium, we were told we were going to have these beautiful ticket windows. It was going to be awesome. We went from having a 500-seat GA facility to a 4,500-seat reserve seating, 5 suites, beautiful facility. It looks like a Maui facility. It's beautiful. At one point in time, Liberty had the largest college scoreboard in the country for baseball. It was great. But 2 weeks before they completed the stadium, they cut our ticket office. And they went from 8 windows to 2 windows. So once again, we were not in that conversation. We didn't know until we showed up 2 days before the game that had been cut. And it was like just because our associatees got a lot on his plate, he's mainly making sure that the baseball stuff is taken care of, the locker room is ready. It just sort of missed his plate that communication never got to us. So from a construction standpoint as well, make sure that even when they're in the architecture phase and they're designing it, that you have some input in where gates are, how are fans getting to their seat from that gate. Because the architects and the people in charge think they know everything, they really, at the end of the day, they don't. And so you have to be able to come in with, your fans better than anybody. So make sure that when anything like that is happening, that you're sort of the voice for your customers. Because like I said, a lot of the higher ups in the organization don't necessarily understand that. They don't know what the customers want. They come in, they go to work, they don't go through the gates like a normal person, they don't deal with any of the customers on a daily basis. So that's the thing I emphasize the most, is just be your biggest advocate from the construction phase through to the end resource phase. And technology's great. Like I said, we had ticket scanners, and they were awesome. We had all this cool technology, and they gave us money for social security tickets and lanyards and crickets, all stuff. It was great, but at the end of the day, all that stuff was pointless. We needed people first. That was the most important thing. We had great scanners all day. We could have really cool technology and really cool looking tickets that made us look legit, but if there was no way to handle any of those customer service issues or to work the gates, then there's no point of that. So I think a lot of times we put the cart before the horse, and we say, oh, it'd be really cool to have all these things, but then we have no idea what to do with them once we get them. We don't have the proper staffing and resources in place. So ultimately, people really should be your first step, and then everything else should come after that. Anything else? I think we went a little quick, but like I said, if you want to reach out to me, the information's on the handout. I'm more than happy to answer any questions and go through anything if you have anything that pops up after that.
What ticket company did you guys go with, Joe?
So when I was at Liberty, we used Weldon. We didn't have any in-house design team, and we just found they were the best from a design standpoint. They were the best at executing sort of the vision we wanted for the tickets. And at Seton Hall, we do the same thing. We originally had a different provider. We weren't really happy with them, so we sort of jumped ship on that and went over to Weldon. Like I said, we don't have an in-house design team, so the design element's big. And like I said, Liberty, we had no issues from a customer service standpoint. We also, I'm sorry?
Good to work with.
They were great. They're a little bit more expensive. And there's plenty of other great ticket companies out there. I know Canada Tickets, like I said, their sponsor was conference. They've sort of come up, they've been really good. The biggest thing is making sure that really the most important aspect of any ticket company deal is that your customer service rep is looking out for you, and they're honest about timelines and what it is that you're looking for. That's the biggest thing. Because we've dealt with good companies, we have awful reps, and so we don't use those companies anymore because we have bad customer service experience. And those reps are dealing with multiple clients. They have to prioritize who's getting printed at what time. So there's a lot behind the scenes. But at the end of the day, you need to find an honest account rep who's going to be honest with you about what they can deliver. The other thing that's big that I recommend that we did at Liberty and we do it at Seton Hall as well. Once again, it's a small office. We do not ship any season tickets out of the office anymore. We don't do it. We do direct fulfill through Weldon. I know every company at this point offers a direct fulfill option. What's great about that is we send them the data file, and they print the tickets out, they stuff it in an envelope, and they ship it out. They send us tracking information. We send that to our customer. Hey, just your package is out. And what's great is it's actually saved us money because the ticket company that sends out 80,000 season tickets to think about like Alabama, for example, they're going to get a better shipping rate than I am. And imagine take Alabama multiplied by 10 for the average shipping company. So we actually saved money. Our shipping rates actually went down. So that's something to think about. Once again, we have decided whether our focus is going to be stuffing tickets a month before the season when it was really busy and using our staff to stuff envelopes, or if our customer service reps were much better inclined to do what we paid them to do, which was to talk to customers and make that sale and follow up on customers that were sort of on the fence. So that's something to think of too. Like I said, if you think of it just day-to-day ease of use stuff, what's more important? Would I rather be dealing with customer service needs and making sure my stuff's ready to go, the stadium's ready, or would I rather be stuffing ticket envelopes at 11 o'clock at night, month before? So that's something to think about too. Like I said, it's been great for us. It takes a lot of stress off our plate, and like I said, they actually cut our costs in half from a shipping standpoint. Anything else? Awesome. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. The information's on the handout. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Thank you again for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Joe.